ask you about November 18th. Okay?
Okay.
Were you involved in the coordination and supervision of the landfill search throughout?
Yes, I staffed all of the volunteers from Savannah and Brunswick. And as I mentioned earlier, I was present at least twice a day. If I didn't have administrative or investigative work on a given day, I was dressed out searching.
Now, we've heard some testimony to this point that suspected human remains were found there that day after some period of unsuccessful searching. Were you there at the outset of that discovery that day?
I was at the United States Attorney's Office facilitating an interview, and Brad called me and said that a skull had been found, and I immediately left the meeting at the U.S. Attorney's Office and quickly got to the landfill and was there for the rest of the day and the additional findings.
Can you describe what was going on when you got there? What was the scene like at the landfill?
Somber, but everyone was looking very, very carefully. We knew we were looking for small pieces of a small child, and fortunately the skull is more recognizable, and so we had believed that if we found one piece, all other pieces that we would find would be within 6 feet of the trash as it was compacted. So we knew that that was our day when we found him at the beginning of the day. And so we were, as you can imagine, there are a lot of bones in a landfill. And so we had to sort through chicken wings and T-bones and all of that to find what appeared to be human and separate those out. And that was throughout the day.
What do you remember about the period of time that passed from the first apparent item, I guess from the first apparent item of human remains being found and you getting that call from Brad to when y'all kind of stopped identifying suspected human remains that day? How long did that process of discovery take?
It took, I would estimate, around 5 to 6 hours. We finished the search from where the skull had been found, laid out more trash and searched that and broke for lunch. That search section had been pushed over during lunch, but then we realized that there were more likely bones within it that appeared to be human. And so I asked them to pull the deck back, meaning the trash they pushed aside that we'd been through. They were able to pull it back with the bulldozer, and we researched that. And so after that, we did one more deck, maybe two, without finding anything, and that was the end of the day.
What do you mean by one more deck, maybe two? What is it?
So the landfill had laid out a large open space that was flat. And we knew the pretty specific area where we expected to find Quentin, but trash as far as Statesboro was coming to our landfill, and so you imagine it compacted very quickly. So we had to dig through the compacted trash, pull out a reasonable amount to search at a time in a safe place. We had safety officers out because there's a lot that can cut you, and we didn't have an issue with noxious fumes, but that was also a concern. So we'd pull that out. The safety officers would look through the deck and make sure that the search team was cleared to go forward. And then we had these rakes, and you would rake through every little piece and open trash bags that were still open and work your way until you had discarded all of the trash behind you, and the group kind of converged in a circle and turned in the bones that we had collected or the items of interest that we weren't quite sure, just needed someone else to look at. Most of us carried a bag on our taped to ourselves so we could just drop the bones in and keep going when there was something like a skull, or on this day a swath of skin or pieces that needed immediate attention, we would call someone forward. Since I was not a searcher that day, I would go onto the deck to get pieces to bring back to the evidence tent.
How far apart on the search deck were pieces of Quentin found from one another?
That's kind of hard to describe because he was strewn, because he'd been strewn when he was compacted into his place of rest at the time, and then the bulldozer dug up chunks and laid out the deck, and then we spread them out. And so he was found across 2 or 3 decks, and the decks were, half a football field. So many searchers found different pieces of him, yes.
So if you do the math, 3 different decks, each of which is maybe a half of a football field, talking about like 1.5 football field area over which pieces of Quentin were found.
Once he was spread out, or once the decks were spread out, yes.
Do you see in front of you a binder marked as State's Exhibit? Do you see in front of you a binder?
I do.
Is it marked as a State's Exhibit?
It is. It's marked
What's
as
the number?
77.
Okay. Could you take a look through that and tell me if you recognize it? What's in there?
I do.
What are you looking at there?
I'm looking at evidence photos of human remains.
And are those the pieces of Quentin that you've been talking about being found that day?
They are.
Okay. Where were these photographed before they were transported to the lab at Quantico?
They were.
Okay. And do these photographs fairly and accurately depict the suspected remains of Quentin Simon as you viewed them that day?
They do.
Your Honor, I would introduce this as State's Exhibit 77.
Subject to the publishing and, I guess, rules we talked about earlier, judge, no objection.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Yeah, 77 is admitted.
Thank you. I'd like to publish just a few. First of all, there's like 60-some pictures in there, right? I'd like to publish just a few of them and ask you a couple questions about them, okay?
Okay.
Can you flip to the first page in that binder?
Yes.
Is this it up on the screen here?
It is.
What does that appear to you to be, and what did it appear to you to be that day?
It is the top half of a skull.
Sorry.
That's it.
Can you flip to the second image in this binder?
Yes.
What does this appear to you to be, and what did it appear to you to be that day?
When we found this and brought it to the tents, we weren't sure when we saw it from here. What I know now and can see is it is a severed foot, cut from the ankle, looking from the inside of the ankle down.
Can you see the one of the ankle bones in this image, just to orient us?
Yes, to orient, this is the ankle bone where it was cut, and then you see almost a left toenail, and you can start seeing the shape of the foot from there.
Turning to the next page in the binder,
Yes.
what is this?
That is the same foot flipped over so you can clearly see the skin of the foot. This is his heel. And then you shake down to the tips of the toe bones through the 5. We had a huge poster of Quentin after bath time, dressed and barefooted on the top of the landfill to remember what we were looking for. And so we had been looking at his foot and his forehead for 5 weeks, and that is what we found. That is his foot.
And finally, the fourth image in the binder.
Yes.
What do you believe this to be?
I believe that it is a swath of skin going from the length of a body, of a toddler's body. So the shoulders come through the back and then down one leg. This was a piece that Officer Zerke passed to Kim Johnson, who passed to me as we carried out with tongs, because at the time it was hard to recognize, but we knew it stood out from everything else we had seen in the landfill.
Now, I'd like to ask you some questions about getting Quentin up to the FBI lab in Quantico. Okay? We've heard testimony from Special Agent Taylor Burns that he was responsible for initially transporting Quentin's remains from the landfill that day to the FBI office in Savannah. Does that align with your recollection?
Yes, we all met him at the office afterwards.
And he's described the packaging of Quentin into 4 different bags and placing him inside of a box.
Yes.
Were you involved in the further transport of Quentin to the FBI lab?
I was.
Can you tell us about that?
Starting from the beginning of the day, or just the logistics?
Or what happened from who took them from the FBI lab in Savannah to anywhere else?
So we arranged for private transport for Quentin. No one felt comfortable FedExing him or putting him on any other way. So I wrapped the box and drove him to Macon, where I met another agent who is on our fly team. And I handed Quentin to Agent Keys, who took him to Atlanta and kept him secure until the next day, where he flew him on an FBI aircraft to meet the lab in Virginia.
Is that how Quentin got to the FBI lab at Quantico?
It is.
Do you see in front of you 2 pictures stapled together and marked as State's Exhibit? I think it should be 93, is that right?
92?
92, okay. Do you recognize those images?
I do.
What do those images show?
That is how I wrapped Quentin's box to transport him. And so the first image was what I could offer to the family when I gave a second death notification. And the second image is how he rode with me in our truck.
Do these images fairly and accurately depict the events that you've been talking about?
Yes, I took the second picture myself.
I'd offer this in a State's Exhibit 92,
No objection.
Submitted without objection.
Published the first image here. Can you describe to us what we're seeing here?
We had Scott Schumann and Jeff Allen were at the office with me for me to retrieve Quentin and to borrow Scott's work truck to drive him. We three of us had just a quiet time wrapping him appropriately, and we thought this would be a nice image to be able to give. It's what I gave to Leilani and Billy Joe when I told them we had found him in the landfill. But he is in that box. He's in the bags in the box, and we wrapped it in a black cloth, and then the flag.
Moving on to the second image.
That is Quentin in my back seat, how he rode with me on the way to Macon.
One moment, please, Ryan. What was the date that Quentin made it to the lab in Quantico, if you remember?
On or around November 21st.
We talked a little bit earlier about the defendant telling you via text message on October 24, and then in an interview on October 31, that she actually hadn't driven to Azalea and had been dancing with her phone or something like that. Do you remember talking about that?
I do.
Did she eventually admit to you that that wasn't true?
Yes. About Danny.
Yeah.
Yes.
And was that on November 21st in her final interview?
Yes.
Okay. And did she tell you at that time that what she had said about Danny on October 24th and October 31 was just a theory that she was throwing out there?
That's correct.
One moment, please.